It was late afternoon in the small town of Brookdale. The sun hung low, painting the streets in gold and shadow. Cars passed by slowly, their tires whispering against the warm asphalt. Officer Dean stood near his patrol car, sipping from a paper cup of coffee, his sunglasses reflecting the street. He had been a police officer for 10 years, known for being strict and short-tempered. Some people in town respected him, others kept their distance. Down the road, a black SUV rolled past the stop sign. It slowed but did not come to a full stop. Dean frowned and threw his cup in the trash can beside the car. He stepped into his cruiser and followed the SUV. The lights flashed and the siren gave a quick whoop. The SUV pulled over to the side of the road near an old gas station. Inside the SUV sat a man in his late 30s, wearing a dark suit and tie. His name was Aaron Miles, an FBI field agent traveling from the city to visit his family in Brookdale. He had been on the road for hours and looked tired but calm. He reached for his wallet, ready to show his license and ID. Officer Dean approached with one hand resting on his holster. His face was hard and unreadable. He stopped by the driver's window and tapped on the glass. Aaron rolled it down and gave a polite nod. "Good afternoon, officer." "Did I do something wrong?" Aaron asked politely. Dean looked him over. His tone was sharp when he spoke. "You didn't make a full stop back there at the sign." Aaron nodded once. "I apologize for that. It's been a long drive. I can show you my license." But instead of taking the license, Dean looked at Aaron's dark skin and gave a tight smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Where are you headed? You from around here?" Aaron stayed calm. "I grew up here. My parents live a few miles from town." Dean crossed his arms. "Funny, don't remember seeing you before." Aaron didn't react. "I left many years ago. I work for the government now." Dean tilted his head. "Government, huh? What kind of government job?" Aaron reached slowly into his coat pocket. "I'm with the Federal Bureau of Investigation." He pulled out his badge and ID and held it where Dean could see it clearly. The sunlight glinted off the badge. For a moment, Dean said nothing. His eyes narrowed. "FBI, you say?" "That's a big claim." "It's not a claim, officer. You can check it if you want," Aaron said calmly. Dean took a step back and placed a hand on his gun. His voice grew harder. "Keep your hands where I can see them." Aaron frowned slightly but obeyed. "Officer, there's no need for that. I'm just showing you my identification." "Step out of the car," Dean ordered. Aaron hesitated. "Is there a problem?" "I said step out," Dean repeated louder. People nearby started to watch. A man at the gas pump stopped filling his car. A woman with a stroller looked worried. Aaron got out slowly, his hands raised to show he wasn't a threat. Dean pointed his gun. "On your knees." Aaron stared at him. "Officer, I'm a federal agent." "You're making a mistake." Dean's voice shook with anger. "Don't tell me what kind of mistake I'm making." Aaron kept his voice steady. "I'm unarmed. Please lower your weapon." Dean moved closer, his finger twitching on the trigger. "You think you can flash a fake badge and act smart?" "Not in my town." Aaron looked at him, calm but firm. "You're pointing a weapon at a federal officer. Please call your supervisor." "Shut up," Dean snapped. "Hands behind your head." Aaron sighed and complied, knowing things were getting worse. His mind raced. He knew if he moved wrong, the officer might fire. From across the street, a man with a phone started recording. The gas station clerk called the police department. Within minutes, another car pulled up. The air filled with tension as people gathered around. The new car door opened. Out stepped Chief Daniel Brooks, the police chief of Brookdale. He was a tall, gray-haired man in his 50s with a calm but powerful presence. He had seen many bad moments in his career, but this one froze him in place. He saw Officer Dean holding a gun at a man in a suit who was standing still with his hands behind his head. Chief Brooks walked closer, his voice clear. "Dean, what are you doing?" Dean turned slightly. "This man's claiming to be FBI, sir." "I don't believe him." Brooks looked at Aaron. "Sir, please state your name." "Aaron Miles, special agent with the FBI. My credentials are on the driver's seat," Aaron replied, still calm. Brooks walked to the car and glanced inside. He saw the badge, the ID, and a small file marked FBI Confidential. He picked them up, checked the seal, and turned back to Dean. "Dean, lower your weapon. Now." Dean's face reddened. "Sir, you can't be sure that's real." "These people—" "Enough," Brooks said sharply. His voice cut through the air. "Put the gun down." Dean hesitated, his jaw tightening. The crowd's murmurs grew louder. Finally, Dean lowered his weapon, though his eyes were full of anger. Brooks handed Aaron his badge and ID. "Agent Miles, I'm truly sorry for this." Aaron nodded slowly. "Thank you, Chief. I just want to go home." Brooks turned to Dean. "Inside my office now." The two officers drove back to the station, leaving the crowd whispering. The story was already spreading through phones and social media. Inside the police station, tension hung in the air like a storm. Brooks closed the door behind them. "Dean, do you realize what you just did?" Dean crossed his arms. "I was doing my job." The man looked suspicious. "Suspicious?" Brooks repeated. "He showed you federal ID." Dean shrugged. "Could have been fake." Brooks's voice hardened. "You drew your gun on an FBI agent who followed every order. Do you understand how serious that is?" Dean glared at the floor. He didn't belong here. Something felt off. Brooks stared at him for a long moment. "You let your bias control your badge." Dean's mouth opened, but no words came. Brooks reached up, unpinned the shiny metal badge from Dean's chest, and set it on the desk. "You're suspended," Brooks said quietly. "Effective immediately." Dean's face turned pale. "You can't do that, Chief." Brooks looked at him steadily. "I just did." Outside the window, the sky had turned deep orange. The sound of sirens echoed faintly in the distance. Aaron drove away toward his parents' home, his hands steady on the wheel but his heart heavy. He had faced dangerous men before, but this encounter felt different. It wasn't about law. It was about respect, trust, and the power of truth. He promised himself he would not let this end quietly. The night settled over Brookdale, calm on the surface, but full of whispers. Part 1 of his story had just begun. The next morning, Brookdale woke to quiet streets and cloudy skies. But inside homes, cafes, and offices, everyone was talking about one thing. A video from the gas station had spread across the town overnight. It showed Officer Dean pointing his gun at a man who stood calmly with his hands raised. The video had sound too, and people could hear Aaron saying he was an FBI agent. By sunrise, the video had already reached nearby towns and even city news stations. The headline read, "Local Officer Points Gun at Federal Agent." Brookdale, a town that rarely appeared on the map, was now on every screen. Inside the police station, Chief Brooks sat behind his desk, his face tired and lined with worry. Papers and phone messages covered the table. The mayor had already called twice. Reporters were waiting outside. Officers walked through the halls quietly, their usual chatter gone. Dean sat in a small room next to the chief's office. His badge and gun were locked in a drawer. He looked angry but nervous. He had tried to explain himself, saying he felt threatened, but no one believed him anymore. Every officer had seen the video, and no one could deny what it showed. Chief Brooks finally stepped into the room. He looked at Dean for a long moment before speaking. "The state investigators are coming today. You'll have to answer their questions honestly." Dean leaned back in his chair. "I did what I thought was right." "That man was acting strange," Brooks sighed. "He was calm, Dean. He told you who he was and he followed your orders. You aimed your gun at him because you didn't like how he looked. You made our entire department look bad." Dean clenched his fists. "You're taking his side." "I'm taking the side of the law," Brooks said firmly. "And you forgot what that means." Dean turned his eyes to the window. The parking lot outside was full of cars and flashing cameras. He stayed silent as the chief left the room. Across town, Aaron sat in his parents' kitchen. His mother poured him coffee, her hand shaking slightly. "I saw the news, Aaron. Everyone did," she said softly. Aaron nodded. "It's fine, Mom. I'm okay." His father, an old man with gray hair and calm eyes, looked at him. "You shouldn't have had to go through that. I taught you to respect officers. I never thought one would point a gun at you." Aaron gave a small smile. "There are good ones, too." The chief handled it right. His phone buzzed. It was a call from the FBI regional office. He stepped outside to take it. The wind was cool, carrying the scent of rain. "Agent Miles," the voice on the phone said. "We've seen the video. Headquarters wants a report. You'll stay in town until the internal review is done." "Understood," Aaron replied. "And one more thing," the voice added. "Media might reach out. Stay professional. Let the investigation speak for itself." "I will," Aaron said and ended the call. He knew it wouldn't be easy. In his years at the Bureau, he had dealt with dangerous people, but public attention was something else entirely. The truth had to come out the right way. By noon, 2 black sedans stopped outside the Brookdale Police Department. Out stepped 2 state investigators in dark suits. Chief Brooks greeted them at the door and led them inside. Reporters shouted questions, but he ignored them. Inside the briefing room, the investigators began their work. They spoke to every officer who was present that day. They watched the video several times, then met with Dean. The room grew tense as questions began. "Officer Dean," one investigator said, "when Agent Miles identified himself as FBI, why did you not verify his credentials through dispatch?" Dean rubbed his forehead. "I didn't think of that." The second investigator took notes. "Why did you draw your weapon?" Dean's voice grew low. "I didn't trust him. Something about him made me uneasy." "Something about him," the investigator repeated. Was it his behavior or was it his appearance? Dean stayed silent. Chief Brooks, standing at the back of the room, watched quietly. He could see it in Dean's eyes, the mix of pride, fear, and guilt. Dean wasn't a monster, but he had let prejudice guide his judgment. That was enough to destroy a career. Later that day, Aaron came to the station for his statement. The chief greeted him respectfully. "Agent Miles, I'm glad you came. The investigators need to hear your side." Aaron nodded. "I'll tell them everything." Inside the room, the investigators asked calm questions. Aaron explained every step of what happened. He didn't speak with anger or hate. He spoke with facts. He asked for my ID, I showed it. He refused to look. I told him I was an FBI agent. He pulled his gun. I didn't resist. I stayed calm because I've seen situations like this turn bad fast. When he finished, one investigator said quietly, "You handled yourself well." "Agent Miles," Aaron replied, "I just wanted to go home." As he left the station, a few townspeople stood outside. Some nodded to him. One older man said, "You did right, son. We're sorry that happened here." Aaron thanked him and walked to his car. That evening, the mayor called a press meeting. Cameras filled the town hall. Reporters asked about the video, the officer, and the investigation. Chief Brooks stood beside the mayor, answering carefully. "We are cooperating fully with state authorities," the mayor said. "This department will not tolerate misconduct." A reporter asked, "Is Officer Dean still on duty?" Brooks stepped forward. "No, he has been suspended without pay. The investigation will decide his future." The hall buzzed with voices. Some people were angry. Some were proud of the chief for acting fast. Others worried what this meant for their town's image. After the meeting, Brooks went home late. He sat on his porch looking at the empty street. His wife brought him a cup of tea. "Rough day?" she asked. He nodded. "We work so hard to build trust, and one mistake breaks it all." She put a hand on his shoulder. "You did what was right. That's what matters." He looked out at the quiet road. "I just hope this town learns something from it." At the same time, Dean sat alone in his small apartment. His phone had been buzzing all day with messages from strangers. Some called him names, others offered support. He turned the phone face down and stared at the wall. His badge was gone, his future uncertain. For the first time in years, he felt the weight of his choices. Meanwhile, Aaron visited his old school that evening. The principal had called, asking him to speak to students about his work. He agreed. Standing in the school hall, he talked about fairness, courage, and calm thinking. He didn't mention the traffic stop. He spoke instead about how people can make mistakes, and how justice is about doing what's right even when it's hard. The students listened quietly. Afterward, one young boy came up and asked, "Sir, were you scared that day?" Aaron smiled softly.
"Yes, I was."
"But courage doesn't mean you don't feel fear. It means you stay calm and choose what's right." As he walked back to his car, the evening sun broke through the clouds. It shone across the quiet town, warm and peaceful. But deep inside Brookdale, everyone knew the calm was only temporary. The investigation was still going on, and soon the truth would decide more than one man's fate. It would decide what kind of town Brookdale really wanted to be. 3 days passed since the video spread across the country. Brookdale had never seen so much attention before. News vans lined the main street. Reporters waited outside the police station and near the gas station where everything started. Some people supported Aaron, saying justice must be served. Others defended Officer Dean, claiming he was being treated unfairly. The town was divided. Chief Brooks tried to keep things calm, but every call brought new pressure. The mayor wanted peace, the governor wanted answers, and the people wanted action. Inside the police department, the mood was tense. Officers whispered in corners, unsure what would happen next. Early that morning, the state investigators returned with their final report. Chief Brooks met them in the conference room. Their faces were serious. One of them, a tall woman with short hair, handed him a folder. "It's all here," she said. "You'll need to review it, Chief. Then we'll hold a press meeting." Brooks opened the folder. He read every line carefully. The report listed the facts: the body camera footage, witness statements, the video from the gas station, and Dean's own words. It all pointed to one truth. Officer Dean had acted out of bias, not threat. His behavior violated both state law and department policy. Brooks closed the folder slowly. His heart felt heavy, even though he had expected this result. He thanked the investigators and sat alone for a while, staring out the window. He had worked with Dean for years. He had seen his temper, his pride, and his mistakes, but he never thought it would end like this. That afternoon, Brooks called Dean into his office. Dean entered quietly, his uniform neat but his face tired. He looked like a man who had not slept for days. "Sit down," Brooks said softly. Dean sat. "You got the report?" "Yes," Brooks replied. "They finished their investigation. I read every word." Dean nodded slowly. "I suppose I'm fired." Brooks did not answer right away. He looked at Dean carefully. "The report says your actions were not only unprofessional but also dangerous. You ignored protocol, refused to verify identity, and escalated the situation for no reason." Dean's eyes flickered. He was acting strange. "I thought he might attack." Brooks leaned forward. "You know that isn't true. He followed your every order." Dean's jaw tightened. "So what now?" Brooks sighed. "You're terminated from the Brookdale Police Department effective immediately. The state board will review your license. They may revoke it permanently." For a moment, neither man spoke. The room felt cold. Dean looked down at his hands. "After 10 years of service, this is how it ends," Brooks replied quietly. "It didn't have to end this way. You forgot what the badge stands for." Dean stood up slowly. "I did my job." Brooks shook his head. "No, you failed your job." Dean opened his mouth but stopped himself. His eyes looked glassy, full of regret and anger mixed together. He turned and left without another word. When the door closed, Brooks rubbed his forehead. It was the right choice, but it did not feel good. He knew that leadership sometimes meant making hard decisions that hurt people you once trusted. Later that evening, the department held a short press briefing. Reporters filled the lobby, holding microphones and cameras. Chief Brooks stood at the podium beside the state investigator. Aaron also attended, standing quietly near the back of the room in a plain gray suit. Brooks cleared his throat and spoke clearly. "The investigation regarding Officer Dean's actions has been completed. The findings show that his conduct violated state law and our department's policy. He has been terminated from duty effective today." Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. "Chief, will there be charges filed against him?" "The state attorney will decide that," Brooks answered calmly. "Our role was to ensure transparency and accountability." Another reporter asked, "How is Agent Miles doing after the incident?" Aaron stepped forward and spoke for the first time. "I appreciate the professionalism of Chief Brooks and the investigators. I didn't want fame or attention. I just wanted fairness. What happened that day shouldn't happen to anyone." His words were calm but strong. The crowd listened in silence. After the meeting, people outside the station cheered for Aaron. Some officers shook his hand. Chief Brooks walked up to him and said quietly, "You handled this with grace, Agent Miles, thank you." Aaron smiled faintly. "You did the right thing, Chief. That takes courage." Brooks nodded. "Maybe courage is just doing what the job demands, even when it's hard." That night, rain fell across Brookdale. The flashing lights from the news vans reflected on the wet streets. Inside his small apartment, Dean sat alone on the couch. The news played on his TV, showing his own name on the screen. His badge, now without meaning, lay on the table beside an empty cup. His phone buzzed with messages from reporters, but he ignored them all. He stared at the window, watching the rain slide down the glass. His career was over and his pride was broken. But in his heart, something deeper stirred, the first feeling of guilt. He thought about the look on Aaron's face that day, calm and respectful even with a gun pointed at him. Dean whispered to himself, "I went too far." Meanwhile, Aaron sat at his parents' house with his laptop open. He was writing his official report for the FBI. His words were simple and factual. He described the stop, the conversation, the gun, and how the chief handled the situation. He didn't include personal emotion. It was just the truth. His mother brought him tea. "You think it's over now?" she asked. "Maybe for the department," Aaron said, "but for the town, not yet. People are still divided." She nodded slowly. "You can't change everyone's heart in one day." "I know," he said, "but maybe we can start somewhere." The next morning, Aaron went for a walk through downtown Brookdale. Some people waved at him, some just watched. A few avoided his eyes. At a bakery, the owner came out and handed him a small box. "Thank you for what you did," she said. "My brother is a police officer. Good ones like him deserve leaders who tell the truth." Aaron smiled. "Thank you. I just did what anyone should do." Across the street, Chief Brooks was talking to reporters again. When he saw Aaron, he gave a respectful nod. The two men had not known each other before the incident, but now they shared a quiet respect. By afternoon, the town began to settle. The reporters left and the streets grew quieter. The tension slowly faded, replaced by a feeling of reflection. People talked in cafes about fairness, law, and the meaning of the badge. Teachers discussed the event in classrooms. Parents explained to their children how important it is to treat others with respect. Even Dean's old partners at the station began to change how they saw things. One young officer sitting in the locker room said to another, "I used to think we just had to be tough, but maybe being fair is tougher." The other officer nodded. The chief was right. The badge means more than pride. At sunset, Aaron drove to the hill overlooking Brookdale. The sky turned orange and pink. He watched the lights of the small town come on one by one. The place where it all began looked peaceful again. He thought about everything that had happened: fear, anger, courage, and truth. In the end, justice had been served, but the lesson ran deeper than punishment. It was about what kind of people they all wanted to be. As the sun disappeared beyond the horizon, Aaron whispered to himself, "Change starts with one choice." Then he turned on the engine and drove down the hill, ready to move forward, knowing the story was not finished yet. A week passed since the press meeting, but the story refused to fade away. News stations across the country were still talking about the Brookdale incident. Every morning, new discussions appeared on television. Some praised the FBI agent for staying calm under pressure. Others debated police training and fairness. Brookdale had become the center of a national conversation. In the small police department, Chief Brooks tried to return life to normal. He spent long hours in meetings, speaking to reporters and reviewing policies. He had ordered new training sessions for all officers, focusing on respect, restraint, and communication. It was his way to rebuild trust. When Brooks walked through the hall, some officers looked tired, others hopeful. Change was never easy, but everyone knew it was needed. The chief carried a heavy sense of responsibility. Every mistake under his watch now felt personal. One morning, the mayor called Brooks into her office. She looked serious. "Chief, we have visitors from Washington. They're arriving this afternoon. They want to speak with you and Agent Miles." Brooks raised his eyebrows. "Washington?" "Yes," she said. "The Department of Justice is sending representatives. They want to see how we handled the case. It's not just about one officer anymore. It's about national reform." Brooks nodded slowly. "Understood. I'll be ready." Across town, Aaron was back at his parents' house trying to rest. But peace was hard to find. His phone rang almost every hour. Journalists wanted interviews. Organizations wanted statements, and some strangers even sent letters of thanks. He appreciated the support, but he was not looking for fame. He wanted the story to lead to something better. That afternoon, his phone rang again. It was Chief Brooks. "Agent Miles, we're having visitors from the Department of Justice today. They want to meet you too." Aaron replied, "Of course, Chief, I'll be there." At 2 in the afternoon, black cars arrived at the Brookdale Police Department. 3 officials stepped out, accompanied by 2 agents in suits. They greeted Chief Brooks and Aaron politely. The meeting took place in the main conference room. The atmosphere was serious but respectful. The lead official, a woman named Director Helen Ward, began the conversation. "Chief Brooks, Agent Miles, thank you for meeting with us. This case has caught national attention. We're reviewing similar incidents across the country. What happened here will help guide future policy." Brooks nodded. "We're ready to cooperate, Director." Aaron added, "I hope something good comes from all this." Director Ward smiled slightly. "That's our goal." They spent the next 2 hours discussing details of the incident, the response, and the investigation process. Brooks explained how the department acted quickly and transparently. Aaron described his experience calmly and honestly. The officials listened carefully, taking notes. When the meeting ended, Director Ward said, "You both handled a difficult situation with professionalism. This department's response is an example others should follow. We plan to include this case in our national report." Brooks felt a mix of pride and relief. "Thank you, Director. We'll continue improving." Aaron shook her hand. "I appreciate your support." After the officials left, Brooks and Aaron stood outside the station. The sun was warm and a small breeze moved through the trees. The chief said quietly, "You know, Aaron, this town is changing. People are starting to see things differently." Aaron looked around. "Change always starts small, but it can grow if people stay honest." Brooks nodded. "You've become a symbol of calm strength. Whether you like it or not, people are watching." Aaron smiled faintly. "Then I'll make sure they see something worth following." The next few days were busy. Reporters returned, but this time their questions were about solutions, not blame. Local schools invited police officers to speak with students about respect and equality. Community meetings were held to rebuild trust. Brookdale was slowly healing, still not everyone was happy. A few people thought the chief had acted too harshly with Dean. Some even gathered outside the police station holding signs that said, "Support our officers." The crowd was small, but their voices were loud. Inside his apartment, Dean watched the news in silence. He saw Aaron and the chief on TV, speaking about lessons learned and change. His name was rarely mentioned now, but the pain stayed. He had once been respected. Now he was remembered as the man who lost everything because of one moment of anger and pride. One evening, he received a letter. It was from Aaron. It read, "Mr. Dean, I know things have been difficult. I want you to know that I don't hate you. What happened was wrong, but I believe everyone can learn and grow. I hope one day you'll use this experience to teach others what not to do. Sincerely, Aaron Miles." Dean read the letter twice. His hands trembled slightly. No one had shown him kindness since the incident. He folded the letter carefully and set it on the table. For the first time, he felt something close to peace. Maybe, he thought, this was the start of his own lesson. Meanwhile, Chief Brooks was invited to speak at a law enforcement conference in the state capitol. He was nervous but honored. On the day of the event, he stood on stage before hundreds of officers, reporters, and officials. The lights were bright and the room quieted as he began to speak. "I have served in law enforcement for over 30 years, he said. "I've seen bravery, compassion, and mistakes. But the incident in Brookdale taught me the most important lesson of my career. Wearing a badge means holding yourself to a higher standard. It means listening before acting. It means protecting, not judging." The audience listened closely. Some nodded. Some took notes. Brooks continued, "We cannot fix what we ignore. The world is watching how we use our authority. It is not weakness to admit when we are wrong. It is strength to change." When he finished, the crowd stood and clapped. Many officers came forward to shake his hand. Some said they wanted to bring the same kind of training to their own departments. Brooks left the stage with quiet satisfaction. He knew the message had reached the right ears. Back in Brookdale, Aaron visited the police station one last time before returning to his FBI office. The chief welcomed him warmly. "Leaving so soon?" Brooks asked. Aaron nodded. "My team wants me back. But I'll come visit." Brooks smiled. "This town owes you more than you know." Aaron looked around the familiar halls. "Just make sure what happened leads to something better." "It already has," Brooks said. "We're different now." Before leaving, Aaron walked past the gas station where everything began. The owner recognized him and waved. "Hey, Agent Miles. Things have been quiet since that day." Aaron smiled. "Quiet is good." He looked at the spot where his SUV had stopped. The memory was still clear, but it no longer hurt. It had turned into something powerful, a reminder of calm, courage, and truth. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the people of Brookdale gathered in the park for a community event. Families came with food and blankets. Police officers joined too, without uniforms. The mayor gave a short speech about unity. When she finished, she invited Chief Brooks and Aaron to the stage. Brooks spoke first. "We can't change the past, but we can choose how we grow from it." Then Aaron added, "Real justice doesn't end with punishment. It begins with understanding." We all share the same responsibility, to make tomorrow better than today. The crowd applauded. The moment felt warm and hopeful. The town that once felt broken now seemed stronger than before. As night fell, children laughed and played while music filled the air. Brooks and Aaron stood together watching the people of Brookdale rebuild trust, one conversation at a time. The chief smiled and said, "You know, Aaron, maybe this story won't end with anger. Maybe it'll end with change." Aaron nodded. "That's the best ending anyone could ask for." The weeks following the Brookdale incident were filled with change. The town slowly returned to its quiet rhythm, but everyone felt a shift in the air. People spoke more carefully and listened more thoughtfully. Families discussed fairness and respect at their dinner tables. Teachers used the story to teach students about courage and responsibility. Brookdale had begun to grow in ways no one had expected. Aaron Miles returned to his FBI office in the city. Even there, his experience in Brookdale followed him. His colleagues listened to his account, impressed by how calmly he had handled a dangerous situation. He filed his full report and received a commendation for his professionalism. But Aaron did not focus on awards. He thought about the lessons that the town had learned and how those lessons could spread across the country. Back in Brookdale, Chief Brooks worked tirelessly to rebuild the department's reputation. He continued the new training programs, emphasizing respect, restraint, and fairness. Officers learned to check their biases and communicate before acting. Slowly, trust between the police and the community returned. People no longer whispered about fear. They spoke about hope. Dean, the former officer, had retreated from public life. The letter from Aaron stayed on his table, a reminder that even mistakes could hold lessons. He decided to attend therapy and community classes focused on understanding and accountability. It was hard work and he faced judgment from many. But slowly he began to see the value in self-reflection. Each day he reminded himself that regret alone was not enough. He had to change. One afternoon, the town organized a public forum at the community center. The event was meant to discuss justice, fairness, and ways to prevent such incidents in the future. Chief Brooks and Aaron were invited to speak. The room was filled with parents, students, officers, and town officials. The atmosphere was hopeful but serious. Brooks began. "We all carry responsibility whether we wear a badge or not. Mistakes can happen, but it is how we respond that defines us. Brookdale has faced a difficult moment, but we have chosen to learn from it. That choice shows our strength," Aaron followed. "Courage is not about winning arguments or proving power. It is about staying calm and doing what is right even when it is hard. Respect and understanding are more powerful than anger. When we choose them, we create change that lasts." The audience listened carefully. Hands were raised with questions and ideas. Some parents spoke about teaching children respect and listening skills. Officers spoke about how they would train new recruits differently. Students shared stories of how they had witnessed kindness or fairness in their schools. The forum became a place of learning and growth. Outside the community center, the sun shone brightly. People mingled, sharing ideas and smiles. Even Dean attended quietly, hoping to understand the town's perspective. He listened to Aaron speak and felt a shift inside himself. He realized that accountability was not punishment alone, but the chance to grow into a better person. After the forum, Aaron walked through the streets of Brookdale. Children waved at him and shop owners called out greetings. The town had embraced him not only for what he endured, but also for the calm example he had set. Aaron stopped near the gas station where it all began. He looked at the spot where his SUV had been stopped. Memories came back, but they no longer carried anger or fear. They carried lessons. Chief Brooks joined him. "It's hard to believe that this all started here," he said. Aaron nodded. "Sometimes the smallest places teach the biggest lessons," Brooks smiled. "And sometimes the hardest moments bring the most change." The two men stood quietly, watching people walk by. A young boy ran past with his bicycle, laughing. A mother held her child's hand, teaching them how to cross safely. Officers walked down the street, speaking to citizens and listening to their concerns. Peace had returned, but it was built on understanding, not silence. Meanwhile, Dean worked quietly on repairing his own life. He volunteered at community programs, helping to teach safety and respect. It was not easy, and he faced judgment and doubt from others. But he remembered Aaron's words in the letter, that everyone could learn and grow. Slowly, the town began to notice his efforts. He was still held accountable, but he was trying to rebuild his own integrity. Aaron returned to his FBI office with a renewed sense of purpose. He began organizing training sessions for other agents, using Brookdale as a case study for calm decision-making and professional conduct. He wanted others to learn how to face tense situations without fear or prejudice. His work became an example across the Bureau. The town of Brookdale also began to receive attention for the positive changes it had made. Officials from nearby towns came to observe the training programs. Schools implemented lessons about fairness and communication. The police department, once divided and tense, became a model for cooperation and transparency. One evening, as the sun set behind the hills, Chief Brooks walked through the park with Aaron. Families were enjoying the warm air. Children ran and played. Couples strolled along the paths. The town felt alive and safe. Brooks said softly, "You know, I never thought an incident like that could lead to so much change." Aaron smiled. Sometimes the hardest challenges create the strongest lessons. People remember how we act when it matters most. Brooks nodded. "I'll make sure Brookdale never forgets. We'll continue to grow, continue to learn, and continue to lead with respect." Aaron looked around the park, watching people interact calmly and kindly. "That's the true victory," he said. "Not punishment, not anger, but unity and understanding." As night fell, the streets of Brookdale glowed with lights. The town had faced a moment of fear and injustice, but it had emerged stronger. Families returned home. Officers completed their shifts with pride, and the community continued to heal. Change had begun, and it would continue because people chose to act with honesty, fairness, and courage. Dean, sitting quietly in a community center classroom, helped teach young adults about responsibility. Aaron, driving back to the city, reflected on the lessons of calm, truth, and respect. Chief Brooks, reviewing plans for new programs, thought about the future of his department. Each of them, in their own way, had faced fear, responsibility, and accountability. Each had chosen growth over anger. Brookdale had changed. The story of the officer, the agent, and the chief had become more than a news headline. It had become a lesson in courage, fairness, and unity. People remembered the incident not as a moment of fear, but as a turning point. A reminder that even the smallest actions could create the greatest change. As Aaron left the town behind that night, he whispered quietly to himself, "Peace is built one choice at a time." The town slept under a calm sky, the events of the past days a memory that taught respect, understanding, and hope. The incident that had begun with fear and anger ended with redemption and unity. Brookdale had learned that courage was not just about strength but about honesty. That justice was not only about rules but about fairness. That change was not about blame but about growth. And in that quiet, hopeful town, life continued, stronger and wiser than before.